welcome to the Inside Texas Q&A show. I'm Joe Cook. That's Eric Naleen. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, go to Inside Texas, where if you were on the board yesterday, you would have seen some of these answers, gotten these insights, been a part of our weekly community Q&A. You can sign up for 50% off, get the Ultimate Fan Bundle. You'll get Inside Texas and all our great Texas intel on 3, where you can get some stuff like Chris Lowe's great feature, an interview with Will Muschamp, and Rivals, where we've got a lot of recruiting insight working with our friends at the National Network. So come check us out. Use that QR code or that link in our description.
But Eric, Joe, remember when On3 bought Rivals and Shannon Terry's got the whole gang back together, and we were like, how's this all going to work? That's a good example of how it works. Chris Lowe killed that Will Muschamp interview, and then obviously we got recruiting on the Rivals side. It just all kind of flows together. So we were all kind of a little bit skeptical of how it would all work, but it's been awesome.
Yeah, great for everybody who's on Inside Texas. So make sure you come check it out. You won't miss a bit of it. But we had a Q&A yesterday, like I mentioned, and with the team just getting back into workouts and summer official visits just starting, you can kind of start looking forward. It's kind of power ranking season. We've had too many conversations about Texas Tech, and I'm guilty there.
Hey, the Tech combos aren't going anywhere, at least on the diamond, right? Tech picks up the portal guy. Everybody's excited about that, and then a little rematch from last year in the College World Series for the ladies. So man, Tech can't get out of our hair.
Yeah, it's and I'm going back and forth with Ian on something. We'll see if what pops up tomorrow. But one of the things we were asked about is the bull and bear cases for the 2026 offensive line. It was from Cool Hand Luke 88, and I'm actually going to bring it up on the screen. I may not have time to read over all of it, and let me try to zoom in enough to where we can see the bull case. But he lays out some great scenarios where you and I kind of looked at this as like, yeah, you kind of explained it, especially with what they did in the transfer portal, what they did bringing in Gooseby, and what they did retaining Gooseby, retaining Robertson, and bringing in some pieces in the portal.
He killed this comment. I'm like, I could have written that, not to say that I'm great. I'm just saying, he's a very engaged reader, obviously. The one thing, when I responded to him, and he didn't leave a whole lot of meat on the bone to respond to, I mentioned that the way the pieces fit together, you could probably, the bull case could be that this could become a very, very good high-end, one of the top groups in the nation as far as pass protection works. Moving Brandon Baker to right guard, I think, is an upgrade over Campbell over last year, assuming that Baker's not just bull rushed. I don't think he is going to be, but so you have a guy that's capable of playing tackle at a pretty high level. He got better as the year went on last year. I was watching some of his late season reps recently, and he looked pretty good. You've got him there. You've got Lawrence Seymour, who graded out very well. We want to learn a lot more about him. Going up against SEC talent, we'll learn a lot about that in August. But he graded very well in Pass Pro. Of course, you got Trevor Gooseby, Melvin Siani, who got much better throughout the spring. It can be an elite pass protection unit, which was the major breakdowns last year in that regard. And then another thing that he could have probably leaned into a little bit harder is that it sets up pretty obviously for a run-and duo, which any offensive line kind of does. But if you're not a road grading unit, duo sets up. That's 2 double teams across the offensive line. You kind of pick your spot. And then also, I think outside zone, it sets up pretty good because it's an athletic line. It's not a bulldozing offensive line straightforward, but I do think that they can get out in space and get some blocks. And then another thing is, they'll get better help from the tight ends this year than they got last year. So the bull case could be a little bit more bullish, but not by much. He did a really good job. And if you're watching the screen cap this, and you can read his comments, see how in depth he went.
When it comes to left guard, he kind of sees the strategy as being, whatever they pick from the options they brought in, whether it's someone like Seymour, Sikorsky, or maybe even a homegrown option, it won't be as bad as what they did in the first, 2/3 of the season last year. And even if it clears that low bar, you look at everybody else and think, okay, this is going to work out pretty well for what this offense needs.
Yeah, I mean, Paul broke this down a lot. You can have 5 or 4 really good offensive linemen. Teams are still going to pick apart your weak spot. Now, Texas didn't have 4 good offensive linemen last year, but they definitely had a really, really glaring weak spot at left guard. So just shoring that up is going to put the offense on a much better schedule. They've got options. If they felt comfortable, even if they didn't get Lawrence Seymour. Offensive line is going to be better. We just don't know how much better. And then again, cohesion is going to be a big issue going into the season.
He did dive into the bear case, and it's funny that that's significantly longer, I feel like, in the bull case, but it's like, what goes wrong? Goes wrong? What goes wrong here? And it's basically, you know what, you can look at Arch Manning and some of the other things that he did to protect that offensive line or work in spite of that offensive line. Well, what if this offensive line doesn't improve? Those pieces were identified or misevaluated, and then you're still not getting any better with, you know, a ostensible improvement in skill talent around everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, the offense is going to be better next year no matter what. They're better at the skill positions by a wide margin. So the offense is going to be better. Arch is going to be better because we're going to see more of the second half of the season Arch than we saw against Ohio State. I actually think he played pretty good against Florida, even though it didn't bear out in the stat book. But yeah, the offensive line it can put a significant cap on the ceiling without a doubt if they don't improve. If they hit the bear case, and I don't think they will, it's probably going to. Logic tells us it'll be somewhere between the bear and the bull case. Then they're in trouble. Now he laid it out here. Maybe he went a little bit harder than even I would have. You know, another question is, you know, how good is Connor Robertson? We don't really know yet. Can he be good enough to ringlead a championship line? I'm not sure that we learned enough about that last season to say, okay, he got better for sure, and he improved center over Cole Hudson, no doubt about that. But can he go in there and be the type of offensive line that can go and lead a top 3 or 4 unit in the SEC? I think there's still a bit of a question mark at center. Another thing that he probably could have touched on more is depth. That, you know, we're still trying to figure out if for sure they've got their starting 5, the right starting 5. We think they do, but who's depth? Andre Kojo, still a bit of a question mark. Andre Kojo could also be in the bull case though, because you know, at minimum, he does improve tackle depth, but it's still a question mark at depth. Jordan Coleman, inexperienced. You know, depth at guard. If we're still wondering about how the starters are, obviously you're wondering about the quality of depth there too. So, but he pretty much did a good job laying out the bear case. You know, Kyle Flood was on the hot seat last year a little bit. What if that's really Kyle Flood? You know, we don't feel like to this point he's ever really maximized his offensive line at Texas. Even that 2024 O-line, you know, left something to be desired.
It's one of those things where he talks about if they can't run the ball, even if they are markedly improved in pass protection, well, you're pinning your ears back every time. It's going to be tough sledding. So good, you know, we're 90-something days from the season starting. Good to think about what we need to look for and see the storylines developing on the offensive line as they get to work a little bit in the offseason and go through training camp. We had a couple other questions that we want to get to. A good one from Mark Bowe. What are the strengths and weaknesses for KJ Lacey and Dia Bell? You've been pretty forthright in how much you think this team, or how far you think this team could still go if it had to rely heavily on KJ Lacey in a given season. A little bit different skill set than Arch Manning, different skill set than Dia Bell. What do you see the strengths and weaknesses for each player?
Yeah, I mean, the feeling is KJ can still have this team in contention for the playoffs if he has to play a significant amount. You know, that's disappointing to some fans, but you also have to factor for the schedule being so difficult. So that, you know, that'd be a heavy lift for a first-time starter. But I do think they have a lot of supporting help around them. You know, Marcel Reed wasn't a wizard. John Mateer wasn't a wizard. Both those teams made it to the playoffs, so they would still be in playoff contention. The good thing about KJ is they don't really have to change the playbook all that much. You can run a lot of the same stuff. He can even run it. He's a good athlete, obviously. He can run RPOs. He throws a good deep ball. He can keep him on schedule, I think. So you don't have to – there's not going to be a whole lot of change. You're not going from Quinn Ewers to Malik Murphy, you know, like we saw a couple of years ago where it's like, all right, half the playbook is out, you know. Because he can't layer throws like Quinn Ewers could. All right, well, you know, not many could. But KJ can make a lot of the same throws that Arch does. I'm not saying he does on the move like the famous throw Arch had against OU. Not many guys are going to make that. But play action deep shots, which are a staple of Sark's offense, you know, KJ Lacey's got a really good arm for that. Year over year, he's a lot more composed, better grip on the playbook. Obviously, you expect that with some experience. He got a lot of experience last year, not only with the real team in practice, but also running scout team. That's going to speed him up a little bit. And he had a good spring. He got a ton of reps this year because Arch was so limited. Dia Bell, you just see all the natural talent that few guys have. It's, there's a reason he was rated a 5-star. He's not ready to start necessarily, but he's a little further along than where KJ was at the same time last year. Obviously, KJ coming in a year ahead of Dia Bell is a huge advantage for him. But Bell can make all the throws. He's a good athlete. He's ahead of the curve as far as, mental readiness. The kind of has that pro mindset that you want to have. His dad was a pro athlete. Dia is kind of a man of the people as far as the quarterback leadership trait that you want to see. Now that usually increases with time, but he has those intangibles that you have to have the leadership. He can do it all. I've been comparing him to Arch since I really dove into his skill set as a junior. I'm like, all right, this guy reminds me of Arch, which maybe it's a little too convenient. I don't know, but I don't really see a hole in his game outside of he needs experience, which is the same hole that Arch had.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to watch. And he does fit that dynamic of quarterback that Steve Sarkisian seems to be looking for a little bit more, and having, the athleticism to move around behind the line of scrimmage. But if you do get ahead of the line of scrimmage, the ability to make some plays there.
Hey, KJ's that same guy too. He's just, 6 foot, maybe, 5'11", whatever. It's just, he doesn't have that prototypical build, but whenever KJ plays, and he's going to play a lot of college football, I think the Bryce Young comparisons are going to be pretty apt.
One more question we want to grab from the Q&A. That's from 67 Cards. Is Steve Sarkisian attempting to spearhead change in college football? Eric, you've kind of mentioned there's a little bit of a power vacuum, although the person that created that vacuum was on Capitol Hill today. But that he's not a current and active coach. All he is on College Game Day. There's maybe not one single voice that really speaks for the sport. There may never be that again, because who's going to become Nick Saban? But do you see Sark and some of the things he's talked about in recent weeks and months trying to become a change agent for college football and to preserve a game that everybody cares so deeply about?
Yeah, and he cares about it too. There's just so many competing interests, and coaching, I think, needs to have a voice. And Sark is candid, honest. He's a good speaker. He's well thought out. Sometimes he gives a little too much for the media to grasp onto, and they lose sight of what they're actually the substance of what he's talking about. They focus on the shiny stuff. But yeah, he loves college football. Nobody knows the difficulties of navigating it right now better than he. And he's standing up for it and making its case. They need stability. He's been saying that behind the scenes for a long time. We've been writing about it. There was times when we're like, or at least thinking privately, this guy's going to bail to the NFL the first chance he gets. Now, we're not necessarily thinking that anymore. Sark said he's in for the long haul. The people we talk to believe that. They think he's in for the long haul. But you can see why guys are bailing for the NFL. People want a sense of normalcy, and there isn't that in the sport. Playoffs are a mess. Player mobility, which everybody agrees is good. Players getting paid is good. It's really tough to navigate. So, I was really excited to hear him say that only having one portal window was a lot more easy to manage. They could get back to coaching because you're not coaching on eggshells, wondering if you say the wrong thing, the guy's going to bail during the spring window. You got to be able to coach these guys hard. Otherwise, they're in the wrong profession. So overall, I think Sark is well thought out. I think he's saying, hey, look, you can't say I didn't warn you. This is the state of the game. And real change needs to happen. You started to see a few more coaches speak up. Kirby Smart even. Not that I don't follow Kirby. Maybe Kirby's been saying similar things, but he was a little more vocal at the SEC conference meetings. And you need more coaches. And I think the coaches, they're all, at least at the high level, the Big Ten, the SEC coaches, a couple of the ACC coaches, maybe a Big 12 coach or two. I don't know. They're going to be on the same page because they're all going through the same problems. You got to have these talks before you actually start seeing that change. Not that I expect change anytime soon. There's just, like I said, there's just so many competing interests. There's laws. That's why the hope is that there will be some federal legislation that's got to be a lot more beneficial to the SEC and the Big Ten than what Ted Cruz and Plattner just ran out.
We'll see how that goes. Long way to go on that one. But if you want some great remodels for your house, we'll tell you who to call.
Are you ready to love your kitchen and bathroom again? Luxe Kitchen and Bath will bring that to life. Luxe has been offering high-end kitchen and bathroom remodels for 3 generations throughout the greater Austin area. With 5-star review after 5-star review on Google and Facebook and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, you can put your faith in Luxe Kitchen and Bath's award-winning designers and skilled craftspeople to bring your dream vision to life. But that's not all. Luxe's all-star team also provides full home remodels, large additions, and even commercial build-outs as well. So call Luxe Kitchen and Bath at 833-358-LUXE today, or visit luxekitchenbath.com to discover where quality meets luxury and begin the process of transforming your home. Get your free quote today by calling 833-358-LUXE. That's LUXE, or by visiting luxekitchenbath.com. Contact info is in the description.
Couple more recruiting notes to hit. Got to go to the 2028 class real quick, and that includes quarterback Neiman Lawrence. A lot of positive buzz for the Longhorns today. He announced he would commit later this month. I think it was on June 25th. He has a final group, I believe, of A&M, Michigan, Miami, Notre Dame, and Texas. And we had Justin Wells join Steve Wiltfong. I think beat Steve to the punch today. Put in an RPM for Texas to land Neiman Lawrence, an American heritage quarterback. So going back to Fort Lauderdale. And this is a name, for 2028s, there's some names I'm still learning. This is one that's been on the radar for about a year. And Texas is looking to make a move and start its 2028 class with a big jolt.
Yeah, he got offered last June. And, we were all, we were like, we didn't know if he was the guy for the class, there was some, I wouldn't say confusion. We're just, continuing to monitor it. They had a handful of quarterbacks in this past weekend. And when they didn't offer anybody, we all kind of just like, okay, interesting. And this comes out that he's going to announce here in a couple of weeks or a few weeks. And it kind of just, all right, well, that makes a lot of sense. So we still investigate it. We're talking to writers that we know in different markets. We're talking to Texas sources and any other sources we have in Florida. I know a 7-on-7 guy in South Florida that has some information. And it all just everything points to Texas. Now, we haven't heard 100% it's going to be Texas, but we feel pretty good about it. And it makes a lot of sense. Sark likes to get his guy in early. Dominoes start falling, and they can go pretty quick. You want to be one of the first dominoes if possible. And, this reminds me a lot of how the KJ Lacey thing went down. So we still have to see if Texas gets it over the line. I'm sure that Lawrence's phone is going to be ringing off the hook the next few weeks with schools making their final pitches. But right now we like where Texas is.
If you look over on the right side, not only is he at American Heritage where Diabell played his high school career, he was also at Northwestern. If I remember right, that's where Teddy Bridgewater coached for a little while. So he's had some good influence on his quarterback skill throughout his career.
I'm sure Bridgewater played there. I have to go back. That was a while back. Northwestern's put out a lot of NFL guys. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, so this is kind of the new way. It used to be like you see a high school kid go to that many high schools, you're like, oh man, it's going to be a problem. It's just the way of things. The guys like me in my 20s just have a suitcase and be ready to roll at all times. That's just the new way of things. That's just the way things are being done these days.
I think he just missed. I'm right that Bridgewater was at Northwestern, but it looks like he may have just missed him by a year. So either way, maybe in the same ecosystem. There's no way they don't know each other. Who knows how much they've given some advice.
And Lawrence is an actual dual threat. So, Bridgewater was a pocket guy. Everybody thought he was more athletic than he was But Lawrence is a true dual threat, built like a running back, good arm. And then the people that really know him as a quarterback say that he's a good processor and has all those intangibles as well. So exciting development. We know that this is a go big cycle for Texas. You got Diabell 2 cycles ago, Ty Nuts in this year. Time to go big again, and I think Lawrence qualifies.
Last but not least, we have some offensive line notes to go over. It looked like with Lincoln Maggio, was able to talk to his dad. Looks like that is Michigan, Utah, and one other school that's not Texas. That official visit was canceled. So and then also Jasper Goqueri looking like he is going to make an announcement very, very quickly off of his Vanderbilt official visit, maybe not take his rest of his officials. So for interior offensive line, it looks like Justin Eric, it's been a day. There are 2 names to focus on, Lucas Roa, Reed Ramsier, some battles all over the place there, but still to add one of those 2 to the group that Texas has with Jackson Cook and Keon Hemphill Woods would make for a solid interior class.
Yeah, I mean, there's a handful of either or scenarios on the big board right now, and that's that interior offensive line is a major one we're watching. Cook to me is a center. Yeah, Hemphill Wood is probably a right guard, sort of in the mold of DJ Campbell. And then Roa would be something entirely different than I think that they've had. I love that kid. I think he's one of the most underrated guys that they're after. But if it's Reed Ramsey, he's damn good too. One thing that we've heard from the college lines of information are that Ramsey is probably an early contributor, at least for one school that's recruiting him. They think that he could start as a true freshman. So that perked my ears. You know, on tape, I'm a huge fan of Roa. That's not anything against Ramsey. He's a damn good player too. I just love Roa. I think that guy's different. But Ramsey, when I heard that college thinks that he could play as a true freshman in the SEC, that really got me interested in him. So Texas, yeah, just split those guys, get one, and you're good.
As far as offensive tackle goes, still looking to add those guys in the class. Main two are obviously Brian Swanson and Ismail Kamara with GoQuery, maybe looking like he wants to head to Nashville. Put some pressure, maybe not pressure, but it puts Texas in a position where they have to start getting some guys out of the group of Swanson, Kamara, Caleb Seiler from Gunter, and then Kalel Johnson, who we think is still making his official visit this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's got to be Kamara and Brian Swanson. You gotta land the plane on both those guys. And then I think they're in a great spot for Caleb Seiler. You know, I really like that kid. He's super tall, and there's diminishing returns on length. You know, some of those guys, it's tougher to move the taller you are. But he plays lower classification at Gunter, so he's going up against smaller guys. And at 6'8", you can see him really bending down naturally and getting movement. I'm like, hey, this is actually a great evaluation tool that he's not in 6'8", going up against guys that are 6'4", 6'5". So I like Seiler. No query. It's not going to be Texas. That's unfortunate. You know, he's the type of guy that he ends up at the NFL Combine in a few years, and everybody's like, where in the hell did this kid come from? He's got like 36-inch arms. He ran a flat 40 at a camp in Dallas this year. That'll probably be down, 4'9" something at 325 pounds. Who knows what he's going to weigh? But yeah, I think he's got a very bright future, but it's not going to be at Texas.
It's nice to see all these names winnowing down. I mean, I like that when the picture becomes clear, some good offensive linemen making their way over the next couple of weeks and looking to add maybe up to a 6-man class if they can get the right 6. 5 seems a foregone conclusion, but 6 seems like what they would get if they got everybody they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays with roster numbers being what they are, you know, it doesn't matter. You can take whatever you need to. I think that they should take an extra. They should take one more guy that can play tackle or guard than they think they need pretty much every cycle. Because if they don't end up a tackle, they can play guard, and they can potentially be elite. So, you know, with a 105 as your roster limit right now, it's not really a limit. So just I hope they go big, and then obviously if it doesn't work out for players, it's easier for them to find the portal.
Absolutely. Make sure you head to Inside Texas. Use that first link in our description. Use that QR code at the top left of the screen. Join the conversation with us. We've got recruiting insight. We've got team notes. We've got baseball, softball coverage as they both those teams continue their postseason journeys. Come join the conversation over at Inside Texas. Eric, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. See you next time on the Inside Texas Q&A.